Hello. 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 Hello, everybody. If you can hear me clearly, can you just type in yes so that I know if you can see my screen and hear me clearly. If you can hear me clearly and see my screen, just type in yes into the chat box. Okay, 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 okay. So okay. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're logging in from. So before we start, you're welcome to this week's Forex Outlook for the 6th to the 10th of February 2023 with Great White FX. So without taking so much of your time, let's get down to what we have for the coming week. As always, we're going to start with looking at the fundamental calendar. So looking at this week, we have rate news on the Aussie dollar, which is coming in on Tuesday. So that means that we might have high impact movement on Aussie on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we have an FOMC member speaking. Then on Tuesday also by 6 p.m., we have the Fed chairman speaking. This is going to be very, very important for the US dollar index. Then on Friday, we have Canadian unemployment change rate. So that's what we have for the fundamentals going into the new week. So let's get down to business. As always, we're going to start with the NASDAQ or the US 100. So looking at this pair, we can basically see we have a break and close above this high on the weekly. You can basically see we have a break and close above this high. So on the weekly, we now have a bullish situation on the NASDAQ. If we're moving into the daily, we can basically see there's a volume imbalance here on the daily. There's a volume imbalance here on the daily. So if we go down now to the 4-hour time frame, I believe price may try to close this imbalance. And if they close it and continue back up, then the draw on liquidity for this week is going to be this high and probably this fair value gap and this volume imbalance here on the weekly time frame. So that's what we see for NASDAQ. NASDAQ is still bullish for now. As long as price stays above this volume imbalance, that's price may come down, fill it in because it's a daily volume imbalance. As you can see here, it's a daily volume imbalance. So price may come down, fill it, and then continue back to the upside. So for NASDAQ, we still have a bullish view on NASDAQ. The next pair we're going to be looking at is the dollar index. Looking at the dollar index, the dollar index is order flow on this pair has been down. As well, the order flow on this pair has been down. But for now, we have a short-term low here and a breaker. So we have a high, we have a low, and we have a higher high. So that shows that we have a bullish change in character on the dollar index. So this is now a temporary low. So if we go down to the daily time frame, it becomes on the 4-hour, it becomes very clear. We have a low, we have a high, we have this, and then we have a break and close above this level. So looking at this dollar index for this week, there's a possibility we might see a retracement into this breaker. That's this up candle before this down move. Either there or this volume imbalance here. Let me, fair value gap. So we're looking at between this point to this point and the low of this area. So if this should start to retrace, this is where you'll be looking for price to fill in, and then maybe price may gone. You see, there's an imbalance here on the daily. Price may try to fill it up completely on the daily. So for the dollar index, we might be looking at a bullish movement going into the new week. For the Euro USD, if we look at the Euro USD from the weekly setup, we can see that we have a very, very bearish situation on the weekly. Price rallied into this bearish order block, rallied deep into it, and then there was a rejection. If we go down to the 4-hour time frame, to the daily time frame, we can see that there's a fair value gap between this point and this point. Let me see. Yes. You can see that price filled it completely and then rejected. So now going into the new week, what situation do we have? We might see a bit of a retracement on this pair and then a continuation back to the downside. We have a bearish order block here. And this swing was used to break and close below this low. So you'll be looking at a retracement into this area and then a continuation back to the downside, probably going for this low, or there's a breaker here. You see it clearly on the daily time frame. Let me go back to the daily time frame. Let me remove all this. We have this low, we have this high, we have a lower low, and if you notice, price has not come down heavily into this area. So this might be the draw on liquidity going into the new week. That's this fair value gap here and this point here for the Euro USD. The next one we're going to look at is the GBPUSD. So the GBPUSD, if you look at it from the weekly, we have a very, very bearish situation on the weekly. If you're using candles, this is a high impact evening star formation. So looking at this pair on the daily time frame, where it's sitting at now, it's sitting at this bullish order block here. This bullish order block. So we might see a bit of a retracement. Should go into the 4-hour time frame. Let me pull back my annotations. This is where price is sitting. So we might see a bit of a retracement. Note this bearish order block here. We might see a bit of a retracement, probably into this area. Note this 4-hour fair value gap. Fill it up, and then we might see price try to close this 4-hour volume fair value gap. But if you notice, there's something I have here. On the weekly, this pin bar is a fair value gap. So price may, that's why you have this shaded area here. If you notice, that's why you have this shaded box here. So price may try to go for the consequent encroachment of this first before the low at 1.1841. So that's what we have on the GBPUSD. So the GBPUSD, any rallies going into the new week might be an opportunity for a short. So looking at gold, gold has a heavy bearish candle on the weekly, but it's sitting at a weekly fair value gap. So there exists a possibility that we might see a bit of a retracement. So if you notice, we have a breaker here too, low, high, this, then price rallied. Price has not come back into this zone that much, hasn't come back into this area. So if we go down to the daily time frame, so last week price rallied into, there's a fair value gap here. I remember telling somebody who had a buy position that this is deep in premium, and you can see price hit it and then immediately started turning. So looking at this pair, there are two opportunities here. If it starts to turn back up, you look for a short at this area. But if it comes down into this bullish fair value gap here and gives you a bullish setup, then you might take a long, which might look something like this. If it comes in here, something like this, then you look for something like this for continuation up to this side. Or on the other side, you look for something like this, then you move back down. That's the scenario we have on gold. So let me go into the 4-hour time frame. So I already see we have what looks like a harami here. So this might retrace a bit, probably to feel this imbalance before continuing back. But note this bearish order block and the fair value gap on the 4-hour. So price may try to fill it. If it gets rejected, then you'll be looking at this low here. You'll be looking at this low, 1825.13. That will be the first port of call on this pair. So so for gold, we might see a bit of a retracement and a continuation back to the downside. Because already we have a high, we have a low, we have this. So we already have a change in market structure here at 19,087. So any retracement will be an opportunity for a short on this pair. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is EURGBP. For now, the EURGBP is clearly bullish for now. Last week, I was thinking that it might just rally and then continue back to the downside. But for now, it has shown willingness to move higher. So we already have a change in character here, and we have a daily fair value gap before we have the previous week's low. So this shaded area is this fair value gap on the weekly. That's from this point to this point. So going into the new week, any retracement on this opportunity, on this pair, might be an opportunity to go for either 90.19, which is 25 point, the 25% level of this entire fair value gap. Because this fair value gap from here to here is 344 pips. So if you're looking at the 25%, you'll be looking at from this point to here first, which is 90.19. Then from this low to the consequent encroachment, which will be at 91.05. So either of these levels will be the drawn liquidity for this EURGBP. Either of these levels will be a drawn liquidity for EURGBP. So for now, this pair is still tilted to the upside. It might retrace. There's a possibility it might retrace. Let's look at it on the 4-hour. Look further to the left. It might retrace because looking at where it is, it's at this what looks like a bearish order block. And it didn't break above the high, did it? Let me see. Let me check out this high. Let me check out this high. Let's see. Well, this is a very, very big candle here. It's within this bearish structure here. Let me go back to the left. You can see it just tapped it. It didn't close above it. So that means that to a large extent, this structure point here is still active. So that might cause it to retrace a bit. If it's going to retrace, you watch this daily fair value gap here. As long as it stays above the previous week's low, there's a possibility it might still rally back to the upside. So the Euro GBP is still bullish. It's bullish for now. The next one we're going to be looking at is the GBPCHF. So looking at this pair for now is in a range. On the weekly, it's in a range and it's at the lower end of the range. It's in a range and it's at the lower end of the range. If you move into the daily, you can see there are lots of liquidity here. So, and that's where price has come in. We have this bullish order block on the daily. And that's where price is at the moment. And that's where we have price at the moment within this bullish order block. So if we go down now to our daily time frame and 4-hour time frame and pull back our notations, let me note that order block as we go into the lower time frame. So we have it here at this point. So if we go into our 4-hour time frame, we can see that price is still within it. Price is deep within it. And if you look to your left, there's also something that's looking like a bullish order block. So for this pair, this is a 4-hour time frame. You have some, it might retrace a bit. It might retrace a bit, but what you'll be watching out for is this high. If you get something like this, maybe price comes down. We have all these levels there. If price should sweep these levels first, that depends on what they do first. If it sweeps this level first and gives you something like this, then you know that they will continue back to the upside. But if you have something like this, it close above here and price pulls back, then you might see price move higher before coming back down. So that's the scenario we have on the GBPCHF. For now, order flow on this pair is the downside. We have these bearish order blocks lined up here. So as long as they hold, this might still move back down because we have a high, we have a low, and we have a slightly higher high without body close before the break. So be it as it may, we just need to wait and see what they do on Monday. So the last and final pair we're going to look at is GBPJPY. But first and always, as always, we're going to start with the yen basket. So looking at the yen basket has been, if we look at it from the weekly, I see that it has been in a kind of a range. Has been in a range. We have a swing low here and we have a swing high here. So this pair on the weekly, order flow on this pair is bullish on the weekly, but it's consolidating. If we then move into the daily time frame, we can basically see is an expansion and it's been consolidating. And if you notice, there's this bullish fair value gap here that whenever price comes into, price rallies away from. Then we have this daily fair value gap here. We have this daily fair value gap here. So if we go down to the 4-hour time frame on this pair, well, we have a break, a market structure here. And price has rallied and retraced. So there's a possibility it may try to fill in this fair value gap. And if it can't move higher, then, because if you look at it, it didn't make a new high here and it didn't make a new low. So that's telling you that this range might still continue. So if this does not sweep this low, and starts to rally first, then it may rally and then come down to peak liquidity here. You can see we have equal lows here on the 4-hour. But if it picks it first, then that means it will rally higher. Well, if it does not pick this, that's what am I saying? You need to see if this other block here, as you can see, there is a bullish order block here that price is respecting. As you can already see, there's a bullish order block here. Price is respecting it. So if this holds and price starts to move higher, then you'll be targeting this point or this point. But should price drop lower and sweep this, then you'll be waiting for something like this for price to move higher. So do I have any questions or anybody who want me to look at before we call it a day? So using this scenario, if we move into the pound yen, using this scenario, if we move into the pound yen, let's go to the, you can also see that the pound yen has been in a range. Also, it's been in a range. So looking at this scenario, we have this bearish order block here and we have here. So looking at this, you might see something, if you get something, maybe we have this low, we have this low. Question is, will price try to sweep these lows first, or will it give something like this, then continue higher, then later to come down? So for now, the pound yen is at the lower end of its range. It's at the lower end of its range. And if you notice, there is also, it's sitting above a daily fair value gap. It's gone down and it's closed back above it. So there's a possibility it may retrace and then try to move higher before moving back down. So that's just it. For the yen pair, I can't say, they are still in a range. So what they do on Monday will be a very, very decisive indication. But I believe this may try to sweep these lows before moving higher. Because when it rallied, it didn't take out this high. Then it broke back below this low. So this might just be an opportunity to rally and then come back down. Any questions before we call it a day? Any questions?
No question.
Okay. Any questions? Controller, are you there? Haji, are you there?
I'm here, sir.
Any questions, ma?
You know, I joined late. I didn't hear when you reviewed gold.
You might watch the recording, but let me just briefly, in case you have any questions, let me just briefly look back at gold. Gold, we have a bearish breakout on gold. We have this high, we have this low, we have this
4 hour.
Yes, and then it has closed back below. You get,
so it will retrace before going down.
Retrace before moving back up. If you look at it, like I pointed out, it's sitting on the weekly fair value gap here. That's where it's sitting on. So you can't take a short here. And if you look at this is like almost
evening star.
Yes, it's like an evening star formation. But the deal is that this bearish candle is not the third candle in the formation. Because the evening star is supposed to be something like this, and like this.
Yeah, this is 4.
But it's the fourth one. It's supposed to be, you get, so it doesn't, there's no swing high yet. There's no swing. We don't have a swing high yet, but this is still bearish, which shows that there might see a bit of a retracement before a continuation higher. So if you look at this on the 4-hour time frame, it might retrace to fill this fair value gap, but you'll be watching here for an opportunity for a short.
Okay, so wait for it to go back.
Yes, you can join the move back up. You know, the way gold does is that gold gives you both ways. Gold can give both ways. So you wait for something like this. You need to see a change in character, then a pull back, then a move back up. Because if you take the move, if you can't wait, because from this point to this point is almost is it not
50 pips.
It's more than 50 pips. It's more than 50 pips. This is 50.12.
Okay, 501.
You can imagine. So
Hey.
you don't want to escort it watching it. So you just need to wait and see. Once it gives you a bullish formation here and starts to move back up, once you get a change in character, you join them. Then your exit will be around here or the 4-hour fair value gap, because the fair value gap is big.
There are two fair value gaps now.
Yes, any of them. You know the way gold moves. If you ask me, the best place to take a shot will be at this down candle, this last down candle before this up. That will be the best place to take a shot, and it comes in within here. So if you use the second fair value gap, comes in slightly around the upper area of the fair value gap. So, or basically, you can just take your fib from the previous high to this previous low, 50%. Do you see where it rhymes? Discounts, lines in there. So that's just it. So it depends on how they start moving towards this area. So any questions?
You are using the weekly high and weekly low for the fib.
Yes, that's the dealing range.
Okay.
So,
okay, thank you.
So good night, everybody. I wish you all a blessed weekend and a beautiful trading week ahead. Bye.
Thank you.